so many of these victims are unable to seek any sort of legal recourse because most personal injury attorneys aren't going to take the case because of the baseball rule.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming back to another edition of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm with my co-host Brianna Ludwig. Before I bring on our guests, people that are tuning in for the first time or coming back, they understand that we turn the tables. The guests then bring the questions to us. Some of our guests will have a lot of information prior to meeting them a few days back, or some of them will have very little information, and then they've taken a look at the website and they've come up with some really interesting and clever questions for us, depending on their profession or their interests in the matter. So we'll get to our guests very soon. But a couple of things in the news. I'm a New Yorker now in Florida, but I follow the teams on TV. I still watch the games. I watch the games a little differently these days because I've been at foul ball safety now for 6 years. So I'm paying attention to the issue that is very near and dear because of all the experiences we've had over the last 6 years, meeting people and hearing all people's stories about how they've been involved. And we'll get to that, and everyone can see what we've discovered at Foul Ball Safety Now. But some news is I'm watching the game a couple of days ago in New York. It's on TV. And one of the Mets players hits a line drive just past the end of the dugout, and it goes into the camera booth where the camera box is, and there's could be 4 or 5 photographers working in there, and all you heard from the announcers was a description. They couldn't avoid not mentioning it at all because the ball went off the bat really fast. So what they said was that, "Oh, the ball just went in there," and they were sort of making, like, sarcastic comments as like, "Is everyone okay in there? Oh, did Joe catch one on the leg?" Or whoever one of the photographers they may know by name. "Is he alright?" Or, "They can take it." Almost like dismissing the fact that these guys could have been seriously injured. And what also demonstrated a lack of sensitivity in the moment was when the producers actually showed not the replay of the ball maybe hitting inside the booth and ricocheting around, but the faces of those people in the box, they didn't look happy. They more looked like, "What the heck just came at us?" And, "Wow, we're lucky to be okay," or confused. It was more of the, "Wow, we're relieved that we're fine," or, "I'm confused. Why did this just happen?" I don't think the announcers really addressed the dramatic faces and the moment where they could have. It could have been another teaching opportunity or a learning opportunity for people to understand that these guys in those positions, physically where they are situated within the box or the booth, the camera box, that they are sitting ducks, and the announcers did not present it that way, and I felt like another opportunity for a real moment to be expressed. So I had a lot to say about the way the TV operates, the way the cameras are operated, what replays are shown of foul balls that go into seats and what replays are not. I believe all the cameras are available, that probably get the ball that goes into these camera boxes, captures the video moment of the balls going into the camera boxes or into the seats. They choose to show what they want to show. It's probably at the executive producer's discretion on what they show. They didn't actually show the ball going into the box, but they showed the reactions. So I thought that was very telling.
Our guest today is Stephanie DiPietro. She is an immigration attorney and an actress. Stephanie, how are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Nice to have you on today, Stephanie. And we're excited about your questions and what you've learned about foul ball safety now and how you want to come at these questions with us. We're excited.
Right. Well, I'm really interested in knowing what inspired you both to start Foul Ball Safety Now.
Wow. Well, I got started with this about 6 years ago after watching some morning news, and I thought it was time to address this matter entirely because I've been a baseball fan my whole life, and after what I saw 6 years ago watching that news program, I said, "This is a regular thing, and this should not be continuing." And, it is a regular thing, balls coming into seats, and why aren't the crowds more informed about the whole subject matter, the history, and the present day? And I've been at it for 6 years, just feeling like it was the right thing to do. It was staring me in the face, and I had an opportunity to organize and put out information and that people would find interesting to find out for themselves what they may have missed. And it's been nonstop working with a journalist now for 6 years. I've been working with journalist Brendan for 6 years, and I've been working with Brianna for about a year.
Yeah, so I started working with Jordan about a year ago and have been at it ever since, doing research and communications and different things with the campaign. I find a lot of meaning in it. And really, for me, I'm a parent. I live in Los Angeles, which is a huge baseball town. We have the Dodgers, we have the Angels, and going to baseball is just an activity that many families are taking part in. And me, I'm not really a baseball fan. I didn't know a lot about baseball before I started working with Jordan, but I think I would have been one of the parents that takes their child to a game unknowingly because it's marketed towards families, and you just assume that if something is marketed for children, it's a safe thing to do, and then upon learning that it's not a safe thing to do, and upon becoming intimate with the different stories from the countless victims, I think for me, it's just about preventing that from happening to somebody else. Nobody wants to put their child in danger, and what's sad is that most people don't realize how dangerous it is to take their children to baseball games. So just doing advocacy work for those people who might not be as intimate with the game, but are looking to get their kids out of the house and entertain their children type thing.
Makes sense as America's favorite pastime is baseball. Definitely bringing your children to a game seems like a safe and straightforward thing, but we've learned a lot more, or at least I've learned a lot more through foul ball safety now that maybe it's not exactly what it seems. Jordan, you had mentioned earlier that 6 years ago you saw a newscast that really just struck you about how dangerous foul balls are and how little safety there is for the audience, maybe for your own audience that maybe is unaware of what was contained in that newscast. Could you share with us what that was and why it struck you so deeply?
We do have something at the website called Exhibit A, which is a 5-minute thread of including the incident that really struck me, struck a chord and got me going on this matter. And that was a little girl in Houston in 2019 who was sitting just past the end of the dugouts, and she was sitting with a family member, and unfortunately, she got struck in the head and she had serious head injury. And I think she's doing much better these days, from what I hear. But at the time, I thought this is preventable. Why is this happening? Why is this still happening? Learned soon after I got involved in 2019 after seeing this incident about a little girl that was struck at Yankee Stadium in 2017. I didn't know about that. I'm a big baseball fan, and I'm from New York, so it was about 2 years after the fact of the little girl getting hurt in New York at Yankee Stadium that I found out about that particular incident.
Maybe that leads me into my next question, which would be what is the core mission or North Star goal for your organization?
Yeah, so it's really been all about just putting all of the news that we're discovering in front of people. Brendan and I, the journalist I've been working with now 6 years, we've interviewed more than 70 people. And we know from the victims, from the baseball players, what their feelings are regarding this matter. And we certainly know about the victims feeling like they haven't been made whole again. They feel like what happened to them should not have happened to them. There's really no remedy that baseball can provide to baseball fans once they've been injured by baseballs. They're not really in a position to apologize because there's really no genuine apology that would be suffice to what happened to them because it could happen on the next pitch or on the next day to somebody else. The goal is really just to put all this information that we have to others, and they can see what's happening in their own town. It's not only 30 teams like the Yankees and the Mets, there's also 169 other professional cities that conduct professional baseball. And there's still around 30 to 40 of those cities even after that video was aired and horrified probably the country, whoever saw that video at least, horrified everyone. This 6 years later, there's still 30 to 40 cities out of those 169 that still don't have netting past end of dugouts where that little girl was situated, where she was. So we need improvements. We need solutions. We can suggest that what is it that baseball knows that we don't know, and should we know about this information? And I believe there's a lot more that they should have been sharing with us up until now, and they just haven't. The goal is just to put information on the table.
It makes sense, and I think that's very interesting that you're also taking in the perspective of both the athlete and even just in your introduction, the perspective of the journalist, because we tend to forget that when we go to the ball game, we're going for a fun time, like as a form of entertainment. But we're forgetting for the ball players and for the journalists, that's their job. That's their work site. And we're so much about work site safety, the fact that they're at risk and, also for the athletes, kind of mental health afterwards, how horrible you must feel if the ball you hit or the ball you pitched resulted in a child, a 6-year-old having like a brain injury. That's got to be an amazing amount of guilt for just doing your job and not being able to speak out because they're your employer.
Yes, we're dealing with this situation in Queens College. We put out a third letter to the Queens College administration just in the beginning of September, and we're hoping we're gonna have a national discussion about what's really happening at ballparks. This Queens College student, this is college, young student athlete contacts me and says, "Hey, we're worried." I'm like, "What are you worried about?" He says, "Google Earth, Queens College. You're going to see there's an elementary school situated right next to where we play our games. So during practice and games, we're all worried that one of us is going to be the ones to do the serious damage. They hit the balls over the sides, and that's where the elementary school kids are." And I was like, that's legit. You should be upset and you should be nervous. And I hear you. So we believe that the NCAA has guidelines to make sure that the psychological well-being of the student athletes, or their psychological needs are adhered to, whatever that may mean. But yes, they are definitely feeling the burden, and we believe that there's some violation or some major questions that need to be raised should student athletes be confronted in the student athlete workplace environment of being subjected to the fact that they could be hurting or killing someone. I don't think it's healthy. So people can see the letters we've written, and it's in the tone of it's not just you, Queens College. It could be any other college or 169 other ballparks where balls frequently exit fields. We know of a situation in Tennessee, a high school booster of probably a parent of a child. They called me and said, "Hey, would you help us get netting for our baseball ballpark because we can't have baseball games and soccer games going on simultaneously. We're worried that a ball will leave the field, baseball field, and go onto the soccer field." So at least they're talking about it, and that's a good start. I let them know their situation wasn't so unique, so I couldn't really help them, but I wish them the best of luck. And what's happening in Modesto, California, as an attorney, you'll understand this, a lawyer, they reached out to us, a law firm in California reached out to us because one of their clients was hurt outside the ballpark. So it was a situation where the ball, instead of hitting the pavement, it hit the person's head. And that was in the summer of 23. And 2 years later, in the summer of 25, there was a settlement. People could see the tab at the website called Unknown Modesto. Letters what we reached out to Modesto, California. So we believe a national discussion should take place, certainly not only inside the ballparks about the unknowns, but certainly the outside.
When a foul ball is traveling over 100 miles per hour, how dangerous is that in real terms? And how common are the injuries from these foul balls?
Yeah, so we know from what we have called something called Exhibit A1. So we have Exhibit A, which is the 5-minute ESPN thread from 2019 news report thread, and then we have Exhibit A1 from 2025. It's actually that report was also produced by in 2019 by a company or a publication called 538. So the journalists I've been working with now, Brendan, now for 6 years, we took a fresh look at that 538 report from 2019, and we incorporated our own research into it. And it's a regular thing to have answer your question, Stephanie. Balls come into these seating areas at high speeds on a regular basis, and people could actually connect the dots if you see the numbers that we put together. There's 2,400 plus major league games, but there's also 14,000 other professional games throughout the country every year, and we know at an average rate of how many balls are used per game, and even if we cut that number in half, which we did, we came up with 350,000 foul balls in 14,000 games, not including MLB. They hit the balls at 100 miles an hour also in these 14,000 other games, even though they're not Yankees and Mets players. They're professional players who are men who hit the ball very hard. It's unfortunate that, near misses is part of the business as usual, and direct hits, unfortunately, a part of business as usual. So that we believe is incorrect, a way of doing business.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there differences in injury rates between the major league, minor league, and the other leagues that you mentioned?
Well, it's more or less the same professional dimensions. It's 90 feet bases. The fences are as far as they are. The sidelines actually maybe even a little bit closer in some of the smaller ballparks. Um, Brooklyn, New York, I was in a situation where the ball came outside but way before I got involved in this, 20 years ago plus, with a group of people, young and old, and a young person we were with gets hit right in the forearm. And the ball just flew right outside onto Surf Avenue in Coney Island, and it just hit this boy and left a mark right on his arm. He went, "Ow." It hurt, and unfortunately, it didn't really require first aid, but it left a mark on his arm, and, yeah, it's really hard to say that, we are in a business where one ballpark is, more safe than another. I don't really go into those equations. So if there's 30 major league ballparks and there's 169 other professional ballparks, I all believe that, since it's unregulated and there's no agencies with oversight determining, netting or safety standards, that we're left in the dark and we're left to our own common sense, and I don't feel like MLB and professional baseball has imparted their knowledge of what we should have known to include in our common sense decision making. If they had, I think agencies would have maybe gotten the memo long ago and said certain things about, well, now that we know all of this, we need to come in and tell you a few things. But none of that has happened as of up until now, Stephanie.
That's interesting that it's completely, unregulated. Because my next question was going to be like, how adequate is the current Major League Baseball netting, and where are the biggest gaps? I mean, possibly inconsistent application of nets may be pretty high up there.
Yeah, unfortunately, people they may have be under the illusions that, yeah, there's been improved netting and there's more netting. And yes, there have been some netting upgrades and improvements, but far from solutions. People are still getting concussed and blinded. And Brianna and I have just been going through just what we've learned from 2025, using different social media platforms, we're finding out a lot of people are self-reporting their own injuries. Sometimes they make it into a joke and sometimes they take it very seriously, but we are discovering, more black and blue marks and serious injuries. And we feel like we need to put this all together for people to see. There have been some other studies from NBC Sports who, if you Google it, you can see they did something in 2019, a netting report or an injury report or just foul ball concerns, implying maybe 5,000 people reported to first aid between 2012 and 2019. Not all with eye injuries or head injuries, but whatever the number may be, that they had recorded doesn't mean those were all the injuries, and that was only from the major league level, and there's 5 times as many more games in the other professional leagues, and how many injuries have just gone under the radar that we just never discovered before. A lot of information to be learned, and we just want to put people up to speed about what they may have missed, about information that could have been shared, and give them a sense of maybe there are good times where with lack of information, and they may revisit those good memories and say, "Hey, we weren't really informed." So maybe we should not even be thinking of our memories as solid good, but more like questionably tainted because, that's they were in the dark. They knew that they're figuring out now that somebody the day before or after may have been smashed in the same seat that they sat in, and it may it may interfere with it may disrupt their memories to some extent, from positive to like, "Hmm, I got some more questions about that. What should we have known?" That kind of thing.
Yeah, social media has been a really helpful tool in shedding light on this issue and really trying to learn for the first time just how often this is really happening because the MLB is not required to report fan injuries at all. And any studies that have been done have been independent and with very little compliance. So, 30 years ago, if an incident occurred, the only way people would find out would be if a journalist decided to go to do a piece on it or even go long form on it. But now, with people being able to post pictures of what's happened to them, post videos of what they're seeing at the game with hashtags and things like that, the algorithm is allowing this to be discovered. And so social media has been a very huge tool in kind of fighting back against the system, which is really keeping victims silent in so many ways. Obviously, with the MLB not having to report the injuries, but also so many of these victims are unable to seek any sort of legal recourse because most personal injury attorneys aren't going to take the case because of the baseball rule. And so, if this had happened to somebody, say, 30 years ago, only their friends and family are really gonna know that this happened to them unless a journalist did a piece, but now they're able to share it with the whole world via social media, so we are barely scratching the surface on this. We have a report that's up on the website right now. We're gonna be coming out with a new report very soon because we have so many incidents, sadly, to add to it, but we're hoping that it will shed light on the reality.
Brianna, for members of your audience that may be unfamiliar with the baseball rule, what is the baseball rule?
So, the base Jordan can answer this even better than me, but the baseball rule is a legal term that basically states that once you purchase a ticket, you are accepting all responsibility, personal responsibility for any object that exits the playing field and strikes you, whether that be a ball, a bat. I mean, there's even been instances where a hot dog has injured someone, a t-shirt, they're throwing projectiles into the audience. And so you are accepting and assuming the responsibility and the risk by sitting in the seat. So
For more than 100 years, baseball has had this baseball rule is recognized in most states. So most people, if they are injured, then it's going to be very hard to find an attorney who's not going to do 30 hours worth of work and find that their case is not going to be accepted. And most lawyers will say, thanks, but no, I'm not going to handle it. And I've been contacted by people that have been seeking attorneys. It's hard for them to find an attorney if they've been hurt by a foul ball. And, we can maybe tools like LexisNexis, where you can go back and figure out how many cases have been filed in certain states. And we believe that if we see, let's say, I think the number was around 10 in Tennessee over a 100-year period. People may say that's not a lot of cases that have been filed because of fallible injuries. Maybe there was 190 that never made it out of the lawyer's office. And there's no record of those injuries, and there's no opportunity for the general public to learn about these things. And when they do go to court, there's usually NDAs, like these high-profile cases that go to court. The families will take the cash sometimes, but nobody will learn exactly about the moment. What about Modesto, California from 2 years ago? The woman got a settlement. We found that out through the LexisNexis, or some law school student was able to figure it out for us, that this case was settled in late July of 2025. But there was no announcement in the Modesto Bee, the newspaper. We wrote 3 letters to the Modesto Bee out in California this past summer, and the fans maybe should have been walking around the last 2 summers since that woman was struck in the head in '23 with an umbrella of some kind. There's probably 15, maybe up to 15, 10 to 15 balls in a 3-hour period that are leaving the sides and going and hitting pavement or breaking windows or smashing heads. People shouldn't be thinking about that, or they're not thinking about that. And there's advanced knowledge of all of this. And unfortunately, I want to bring everything to the general public that they should have known all along, and what they could determine now on how to navigate parking at a game, going to a game, and sitting at a game with their children. It's just a matter of more information, and I think we can do it, and I think that's why we're talking, and let others decide from their own personal experiences or their own professional experience, especially as an attorney, whether they can find some sort of theories to show judges videos and other things to compel them to speak up, maybe on behalf of the children who can assume the risk for themselves. They're dragged to the games by their families, so it brings up that question as well. So,
You had mentioned how technology has done a lot in terms of uncovering this issue and letting the public actually see the dangers and the consequences of these foul balls. However, I can also see technology possibly leading to more injuries at the ballpark because maybe the fan watching the ball game gets distracted by a text message or a TikTok video. Uh, how have you seen the injuries, if any, increase as a result of maybe people being distracted by their cell phones?
well, even if cell phones actually increase the distraction at games, because everyone will always say people are on their phones, they need to pay attention. Long before phones came along, we were still not superheroes the last I checked. There was an umpire who was staring intently at the pitch. His name is Hunter Wendelstedt. We have something at the website called Exhibit A2. This umpire, about 4 or 5 months ago, was struck. He was 100 feet away, and he was paying attention. That's his job. He was 90 feet from home plate, and then he's about another 10 feet behind. So he's 100 feet away, and he hasn't been back to work since. How are dads with egos or moms with egos gonna protect their children? Even the ones that think they're gonna catch a foul ball, like, bring it on, or I'm gonna sit 1 seat closer to home plate and I'll protect my kid. Yeah. Ask any of the people that Brendan and I have interviewed, the 30 guys that we have interviewed, where their family members sit. They know, because they're in the workplace of hitting the serious balls, whether they're staring intently for 3 hours or whether they're goofing off, talking to their buds. This is not distracted driving and being distracted on your phone and doing something illegal. This is being in a baseball game. You should be able to chew on your hot dog and reach into your pocket to grab a dollar bill, to give it to the vendor, to yawn, to sneeze, to put mustard on your pretzel. You can do all those things and not think about, is this the right time to do that? And even if you chose your spots on when to bring your food down from the aisle. I know of a girl named Alexis who was up in the food concourse at a minor league game, just standing on line, and she got hit. Fortunately, not too seriously. So all parts of the ballpark can be exposed to foul balls. It needs to be finally expressed when management says things like the fans need to pay attention, they're also possessing the knowledge of the advanced risk. So I believe that that's a cop out and it's a deflection, and they're not really dealing with the matter. They're creating statements. I could cherry pick all these statements over the last 20 years where management has said our fan base isn't really interested in more netting. And at the same time, they possess the knowledge of Exhibit A1 and know just how many foul balls are going into seats at speeds that are crazy. For the last decade or two, there's no getting around that. Everything is tracked, everything is monitored, exit velocities, launch angles. And people look at Exhibit A1, the 538 report that Brendan and I took a look at this year, and we've put our own notes onto it. I think you guys will think you have an opportunity to do that. That's what we're doing here. We're just putting more information on the table, trying to eliminate, more of the unknown factors so everyone else could see what we've been looking at.
I mean, more netting or better netting or more strategic netting seems to be a no brainer. What
Mhm.
are the reasons or the pushback that you're getting to more netting? How would you counter it? And how would you deal with the fan that says, quite frankly, the best part and the most exciting part about going to a baseball game is the possibility of catching a foul ball, taking that foul ball home, maybe selling it on eBay for 100 grand.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll start off with that. With the netting, yeah, it is entrenched in our thinking going to games. Most fans are thinking foul ball and fun, and they're bringing their glove. I don't think they're bringing the glove to defend themselves from catching one in the neck. It's more the idea we're going to catch a ball, and this going to be great. I think you can somehow get into their mindset, like, hey, we have something we should have shared with you. We could have shared this with you back in 1970 because we had an idea. Things weren't tracked as much back then, but we knew how many dozens of baseballs we went through in 1970. And we have some ideas of how many balls went over the dugouts where a 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium. And going forward, we want to tell you something. And we realize that this is going to happen again. Near misses in these sections, as it hit Allen last year, it may miss the next 12 times, but the next time it may hit somebody and could do serious damage. So, for that reason, we want to do something about that. So, to put up the nets, we have to do that. That's necessity. We have to protect you. That's plain and simple. For those of you that you're feeling like you're missing out on the foul ball experiences, we're going to create these retractable netting scenarios. Now, anything is that comes out of your mouth is probably possible. Maybe back then it wasn't, but clearly now, retractable nets, give out 150 balls a game to kids. Far more many foul balls that'll be coming into seats. They'll go $6 extra for each ball, whatever the low cost of a baseball would be. It's not going to affect the billionaires. They can give out 100 balls or 150 balls there every single day, and give it to, there'll be some sort of lottery. There'll be patches, autographs with retractable netting before and after games, and all kinds of things could be integrated into the fan experience. The romance of catching a foul ball, once proper education is put in front of everyone, they'll realize, oh wow, our flirtation with the fun of foul ball was all really fiction because we didn't really have the knowledge that if we knew the cost of the flirtation of foul ball could have been hurt or worse, that wouldn't have been so good. We would have skipped on it, and I think we can handle it. I think there's a way to transition the experience into another experience, Stephanie, where it's gonna be positive for everyone.
Yeah, it sounds like a win-win that is not just foul balls, but you get injured, or no foul balls, you just miss out on the old time experience. It's just going to be a new experience at the ballpark. What milestones or wins have you had so far for ball safety now?
Right. So we had a lawsuit in Peoria, Illinois, and I'll take it as a victory because we got a nice article in the St. Louis Dispatch. Everyone can find it at Foul Ball Safety Now. They were one of 120 at the time, a few years back, that didn't even have netting above the dugout. So they were like the worst of the worst. Major League Baseball, like Yankees and Mets, they all have 4 affiliates. The Cardinals is one of those 30 teams with 4 affiliates. So there's 120 of the affiliates, and one of 120, which the Peoria Chiefs, had no netting above the dugout. I did some stunts. I flew an airplane over the over the ballpark to try to get some publicity. Done that a few other times to bring attention to the issue. And we were in court. We had a plaintiff by the name of Sandy who wasn't seriously injured by a foul ball, fortunately, but she hadn't been back to a game in over a decade. And we asked her if she would be the plaintiff, to be standing, to be the person we can file a case with. So it was Sandy versus the Peoria Chiefs, and combination of a few things were incorporated into the case. We went a year in court, went a few rounds. At the end, we pulled out. We didn't feel it was cost effective for my pocket and for the goal of. We were at the place in the proceedings where we had to decide whether we wanted to appeal the judge's ruling to go to arbitration. My lawyer advised that it wouldn't be worthwhile, cost effective. For me, it wasn't going to be, and, we pulled out, but we got a newspaper article in the St. Louis Dispatch. The case was not only for Sandy, but it was also taxpayer debt. The team was gonna get some sort of, tax forgiveness from the city. They owed the city maybe over $1,000,000, and, we felt like, because this Peoria Chiefs were getting some sort of tax break, they weren't providing appropriate netting, or at least the bare minimum netting, and maybe one other issue, but it was a positive experience, and that was a lot of, interesting, exchanging with, the Peoria Chiefs and the attorney that I was working with, and even got a call from the corporate counsel of the St. Louis Cardinals, who wanted to feel me out for about 5 minutes, and he was quick to say goodbye just to see where we were at, just to see if, we were making enough noise that they have to be worried. But we made some noise, and, Foul Ball Safety Now continues, and we continually bring neat news and updates, and that's purpose of Foul Ball Safety Now, to try to keep people up to speed on all the issues.
Absolutely. And what is the biggest obstacle to your progress right now? And how do you sustain all your good works in terms of like funding, volunteers, partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, there's something on my website, this maybe speak to your circles a little bit, Stephanie. There's a pro bono pop-up. So we clearly want lawyers to jump in on this matter with us. We feel like there's a way to establish theory in many of these cities, and I know what it takes. You guys need to get in rooms and think about the issue. Have me be a participating fly on the walls to help in establishing standing to go to courts in these states. That would be the short term for sure, because we believe, once the judges see this video from 2019, they should be horrified and immediately say no more kids. Immediately, something to the effect, you can't bring your kids to assume the risk to be in these danger zones. We would hope that would be, a motivation for the legal community, to jump in on this. A lot of the lawyers have heard about this issue from their law school days, assumption of risk and all of that, from torts professors and law professors, sports clinics or sports law. So I'm sure the baseball rule's been uttered a million times, and I think I'm doing what I need to be doing. There's no incentive. I'm not getting any percentage of any recovery of any case. Eventually, I think our information will be put into publications, and literary people will feel like this is a good, journal of what we've been doing for all these years, and we can probably eventually sell a book or 2. But right now, it's all about just the files keep growing, the evidence keeps on mounting, and we certainly want the court of public opinion to be swayed, or to be at least informed and then swayed. So that's where we're going. So,
For
yeah.
your listeners that are non-lawyers, how can they get involved?
Oh, well, I have several petitions on the website, whether you have a open willingness to, depending on what's happening at in your ballparks, there's 169 ballparks. And clearly, if you're supporting one of those teams other than the major league teams, you can probably get your local fans involved. And I certainly want to be part of consulting with you guys and helping you get more informed how many balls are flying out onto the pavement or the 30 to 40 cities that don't have netting past end of dugouts. It's time to be upset about that. And why would one ballpark have, more netting than another, 45 minutes down the road? Where it may be significantly more netted. Again, netting improvements are great, but they're not solutions. I think all 30 professional league cities, all Yankee, Mets, Cardinals, those 30 teams, another 669, and a lot of more other teams I didn't even mention, other leagues, semi-pro leagues or up and coming leagues, they all need to have their own independent netting council. And if you guys could somehow wrap your head around what's happening in your area and take a look at what's happening in your field, inside and outside, I'm happy to, participate in those discussions or motivate you guys to pay attention. So there's a lot people can do as baseball fans.
That's great, and do you see your campaign expanding to other sports? Because anyone who's sat courtside like I have for a New
Uh-huh.
York Liberty game or for other, professional, sports teams could tell you. So you wanna be close to the action, but sometimes you get a little too close.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not really, looking to get into any other sport. I think, it would be a great idea, what a concept, because I feel I have a saying I've been using a lot that we're still in the dark ages, and maybe in 10 years from now, we can say in 2025, how about those dark ages back in 2025 when baseball conducted business a certain way. I certainly hope we can get past that, and at some point in time, we'll all feel like, this work has been productive and it's led to a lot more conversations and solutions. Conversations will bring solutions. So I'm confident in that, and that's what we do. We're trying to just present everything we have and put it out there. If the concept I was grasping at is Major League Baseball, if they ever had their own house in order, they could nurture all the colleges and all the other professional leagues and say, if you're having a problem in your neck of the woods, let us know. We'll bring our own consultants in and we'll help you make sure that nobody's smashed inside or out. But that they can't even fix their own. So again, it's going to be up to people to deal with it locally, and I am going to be around and hear about it and hopefully participate in their conversations. Yeah.
Excellent, and that just leads me to my last question, if you still have
Okay.
some time for
Sure.
me.
Yes, of course.
What is next for foul ball safety now, and what is your vision for baseball safety 5 or 10 years from now?
What's next is the next conversation we have with someone like yourself, which is exciting. We're eventually getting all of our recordings with people like you out there so people can hear. So we're excited about that. Just following the news and again, what I was sharing with you a few minutes ago, it's time in the near future that we can say that baseball is now being conducted, integrity is now integrated into the game, and we haven't had that opportunity to say anything like that. It's fictitious if somebody wants to say this integrity in baseball. Far from it, never been. But can we say that in a year or 5 years from now? Depends on how much progress we make. So I'm going to keep that going. I'd love to be around to say there's integrity in baseball. What a great game. What a great game. Brianna could bring her child and not think about it. Brianna will be able to say something like, I can't wait to be able to bring my child to a game and not worry about anything. I'm hoping we can all do something and look at something as in we made leaps and bounds and now we have, this particular ballpark in order for everyone to come and enjoy.
I feel like I know too much, and so I could never, in good faith, bring my child to a baseball game. I don't feel it's a very moral decision, and when I hear of any of my friends who are bringing their kids, I know the right thing to do is to say something and at least warn them or try to make them as educated as possible so that they have a better sense of what they're walking into. Until baseball can guarantee that my child will be safe, I will not be bringing my child to a baseball game, though I'd love to. Stephanie, my question for you is how important is advocacy to you, both in your line of work, but also just as a human being?
For my line of work, I'm an immigration attorney. Both advocacy and education, educating the public on the issue of immigration is so important. Often, kind of television shows and movies, they represent immigration as one thing, but really being in the trenches and seeing how it impacts people's day-to-day lives and how there are so many ways to make the system clearer and better and increase fairness for all is really, really important part. Also, I think advocacy kind of feeds your soul. It gives you a reason to get up in the morning and being able to help others. There's no better line of work.
That was pretty powerful. Thank you. This is great.
Yeah, and we are going to continue to advocate for victims and do our best to prevent any future injuries to the best of our ability.
All right, Stephanie, I really want to thank you. This was terrific. And I look forward to people coming back to Fallible Safety Now talks. We're talking here. So thank you so much, everyone. Take care.